En af dem, der er med til at betale.
get started. Wow, now it's quiet. So let me just test if I talk with this or if I talk with this. Is it best with a microphone? Okay, we'll do that. All right, my name is Henrik Hansen. I'm the director of the Danish data center industry, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to this very interesting day, big day for the Danish data center industry. We are very proud of being a part of this initiative. I think it's very serious, it's very ambitious, the plans that we have, and we look forward to really implement the thoughts and the plans that we have been engaged with. And first of all, just a thank to our 4 founding partners, Google, Microsoft, Danfoss, and Schneider Electric. It's been a pleasure working with you over the past year or so to find the right way for this construction. So I'm very happy about that. Before we go into the more detailed agenda, which I will try to lead you through this afternoon, I will give the word, and also a great thanks to Fredericia Municipality and also Business Fredericia, who has helped operationally getting this arrangement set up and clearing the room. This was where everybody was eating an hour ago, so it has been very effective. Thanks for that. But I'll give the word to Deputy Mayor Søren Larsen from Fredericia. But a warm welcome to all of you, and let's give a hand to Søren.
Thanks, and welcome to Fredericia. We are delighted to have you all. Fredericia is a Google town, a data center town, and with this history, we are thrilled to witness the launch of this significant pan-European consortium. In recognition, the vital role this data center plays in the digital transformation of our society and our daily lives, we also acknowledge the commitment of data center operators and suppliers to manage the immense growth in data while minimizing their environmental impact. I'm excited to witness the data center industry reaching out to collaborate with other sectors, government bodies, and educational institutions to develop shared solutions that can have the most substantial impact. I take great pride in the fact that the Net Zero Innovation Hub is rooted right here in Fredericia. Our town plays a big role in the green transition, and this transition cannot occur without an integration of digital technologies. We look forward to the positive influence this consortium will have on our community and on the broader European landscape. Together, we begin a journey towards a more sustainable and digital empowered future. Thank you, and once again, welcome to our town.
This new initiative has this pan-European scope, and what we engage in, develop new methods, new systems, new solutions, we hope that it can be beneficial to the entire European continent and maybe also further on. So a European project based here in Fredericia. When you announce these kinds of initiatives, you always need a minister to make it more formal. So you can say now we have really started. So we have got the blueprint from the government. So we invited our Minister of Global Climate Policy, Dan Jørgensen, And unfortunately, due to his calendar, he wasn't able to be here physically, but he has sent a video greeting, so we will hear that in just a second. Before that, just a little description of the program. Following the video from Dan Jørgensen, we will have the first panel debate where I'll invite on the scene the 4 founding partners, and where we will have a discussion on some of the key challenges that we face as an industry, and also hear from each of the partners. What are your visions, what are your goals with this type of cooperation, where we look both inside the industry, but very much also look outside to the surrounding industry, to the authorities, to the academia and so on. So we will have a discussion on that. And then we'll have another panel debate afterwards where we will look abroad, outside our industry, inviting 4 people on the stage who represent some of these sectors and industries that we would really like to get closer to, and also invite into this hub to make some shared solutions. So this is a program. Then we have a little ribbon that we will cut later on in the afternoon, and then we will have bubbles and some snacks at the end of the show around 5 o'clock. So that's the program. Let's move on. I forgot to welcome also the people who are on live stream. We are live streaming this on YouTube and LinkedIn. So we know that a lot more than the people present here is also listening in. So that's great. Welcome to you also. But let's move on. We have some issues, I think, with the speaker here, but I hope we'll do all right. We will move on with the greeting from our minister, Dan Jørgensen. So welcome to him. Let's give him a hand, even though he's not here.
Ladies and gentlemen, in today's world we are facing unprecedented environmental challenges. Climate change, resource depletion, and energy scarcity threaten the delicate balance of our planet. To combat these challenges, we must transition to a more sustainable way of living. The Danish government stresses the urgency and need to work with countries all over the world to raise ambitions and ensure support for the green transition globally. Increased global ambitions and actions are necessary if we are to reach the Paris Agreement's 1.5 objective. In today's world, we can't live without the data centers. They are the backbone of the digital age, powering the internet, supporting cloud computing, and handling large volumes of data generated daily. However, they consume great amounts of energy. Data centers are currently accounting for a substantial part of the global energy use. Despite strong gains in efficiency, the rapid growth in data handled by data centers has resulted in a substantial increase in energy use over the past several years, and data centers' energy usage is projected to continue to grow in the future. By innovating data centers, we can significantly reduce energy consumption, and this will play a role in renewable energy integration. By optimizing these things, the carbon footprint of data centers can be drastically decreased. Denmark has showcased some of the world's most efficient data centers. Many of them are delivering excess heat to our district heating network or offering backup power capacity to the grid. These solutions are crucial in the future. The Net Zero Innovation Hub for Data Centers in Europe is based on experience and know-how from the Danish data center industry. I want to congratulate the partners behind the initiative, Danfoss, Google, Microsoft and Schneider Electric, for engaging with the development of new technological solutions that can contribute to increased decarbonization of industry in Denmark, Europe and globally. I look forward to following the work of the Innovation Hub and the impact it may have in fighting global climate change. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to Dan Jørgensen, who is rather important, because when we talk about making this an international scope, he is the one on behalf of Denmark who is engaging in much of the global climate discussions, heading up Denmark's interest in those areas. So we're happy that he now knows very much about the project and also is interested in following the developments, and hopefully he can also spread the words to his colleagues around Europe and the rest of the world. That's our hope. So thank to Dan, and then I would like to introduce our first panel on the board here. So as I said in the beginning, we are very pleased to work together with 4 global companies with a lot of activities within the data center industry, with a lot of capacity, resources, and also innovative ideas. And I think it's only the fantasy that is really the limit to what can we achieve when we really go together with all these interesting ideas and invite other people, other companies, organizations to join the collaboration. So I think that will be extremely interesting. So let me invite to the scene Jürgen Fischer from Danfoss, JP Clausen from Google, Michael Mikkelsen from Microsoft, and Mick Ceremet from Schneider Electric. And we need to have a microphone on you each in terms of the streamers, if they are going to hear what you say.
Good.
Maria, do you need to quality check how they put the microphones on? And we have decided that the format will be that each of the panelists will have 3 minutes approximately to give their views on the major challenges and also what they hope to get out of this Innovation Hub concept. So we have arranged it. So Mikael, you will start out from Microsoft. You'll get this microphone.
So also need both? Yeah. Okay, good. Hello, good to see everybody here this afternoon in Fredericia. My name is Michael Mikkelsen. I'm representing Microsoft. I've been working with IT for the last 30 years, working with public sector, private sector customers, seeing how digitalization can help them in their day-to-day life. I continued that work, started 15 years ago in Microsoft, and continue to see the evolution of how first cloud computing kind of changed the access to the IT systems, faster innovations, more access for the customers. Latest, I've seen how AI suddenly can change the way we work, both as programmers, as lawyers, and all the way to journalists, and we actually believe that we become better at it. So that of course means that there is an increased need for data centers, as we all know. So of course that also means that as we as an industry need to be thoughtful about how do we actually develop these data centers, how do we make sure that they are of course technically clever, can meet the expectations, but of course also do not spoil our climate. That is of course super important. Microsoft have large ambitions in this area, as most modern companies have these days. So we want to be CO2 neutral when we come to 2030, use no water and have no waste. So that is not an easy task. Personally, I've been working with our data centers in Denmark. We're building 3 data centers on Zealand. I've been very close to the process of how hard it actually is to actually make them more sustainable. As an example, we are going to use excess heat for the district heating systems in Tostrup, and that has been a super complicated process. I'm saying even though we talk about also here in the hub, it's kind of version 1, so there's a lot of things we need to learn, and it needs to be something that everybody can do in the industry, as an example. So with that, I can see there's a huge need for innovation, and there's a huge need for this hub working together with brilliant companies like Danfoss, Google, and Schneider, but also many more to make this happen. So I look really much forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, and we'll pass the word on to JP Clausen, who is
Yeah, as you can
VP
see,
for
we didn't know
Advanced
the
Technology.
order. Yeah, so I'm Jens Peter, or JP, and I work for Google, work with our advanced technology innovation worldwide, and specifically thinking about how could we design data centers so we actually also reach the target of net zero by 2030. It is very important that the industry is solving this together. And honestly, I'm only here because I need help. We don't have all the answers for how we do this, and we definitely would like to invite cross-border, like collaboration for how we're actually going to do this. There is a lot of different initiatives that we want to do as a company. One of them being that we have the 3 different scope, and that's actually one of the things we want to do with the data center industry, also together with universities, suppliers, and the rest of the industry. We want to solve some of those difficult problems for the 3 scopes, and one being that on-site generation, which is in this case backup power. We want to solve that so it's totally fossil free, and we have to do that again in collaboration with other different parties. We also want to think about scope 2. 24/7 carbon free is really, really difficult. The good news is that we are 94% hour by hour net zero in this part of the world, and we are definitely proud about this, but there's still 6% left, right? And those 6% we have to solve, and we like to do that together again with the industry. The last thing is the scope 3, which is around all our suppliers, and that's also why I'm really happy that we have some partners that are helping co-invest this initiative, because the whole supply chain is something we like to solve as well, that we also become net zero. So we have a lot of things that we want to do with this innovation center, and the ambitions are extremely high about what we can achieve here. So it's not without risk, and that's also why that the 2030 target is very, very ambitious, because there is a risk that we could not reach that target, but there's also like a possibility we do. And the only thing I know is that, and I worked for a certain electrical company, electrical car manufacturing for some while, is that it's unbelievable what you can do if you want to. So I think with that saying, I'm very honored to be here. I'm Danish but live in the US, so I'm seeing like how far you are ahead of a lot of other countries, and that's also why I want to make sure that we are, rooting our effort here as a pan-European collaboration that is reaching outside this country, but also like benefit from the fact that there's a lot of things being done here in Denmark, specifically around the hydrogen economy that we've seen is blooming, and we can also see that there is a lot of investment in ensuring that we can actually storage energy in different forms and shapes. So with that said, I'd like to pass the word to the next speaker, and I really encourage all of you to think about how you can help, because this is going to be a tough journey to reach net zero in 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, JP, and then it's Mick Seramet from Schneider Electric.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me here and joining our launch. I am Mick. I work for Schneider. I work in our data center system, where we are providing new technologies primarily and solutions. And I've been doing that for a little more than 5 years. And prior to that, I was in the renewable sector, doing innovations inside wind turbines. So for me, this mix and this ambition we are here embarking on is a dream come true. Right? It makes perfect sense. But let me start with 2 well-known trends. The change or the transformation of our energy sector and the increased demand of data centers. We see a lot of good things happening in the energy landscape. We see the electrification increasing on the demand side. We see the renewables increasing on the supply side, but we also see that causing some challenges for our electrical grids. Right? We don't like it when our connection, our internet access is lost due to a power outage. We don't like it when our Christmas dinner is ruined because there is a power outage right when the dinner is in the oven, like it happened last year on Christmas Eve. And we for sure don't like it when our long save for smart TV, or even worse, the MR scanner at the hospital is worn out after only a short period of operation because the power quality on our grid has become too poor. But there is a golden opportunity on the data center side. And the data centers, if you look at it from an energy resource point of view, it is an amazing asset. Right? And we need to put that to play. And we are going to build lots of data centers over the coming years to maintain and further expand our connected social interactions, but also to host the digitization which is needed to drive sustainability and make sure we make the most of our energy. We can only seize this opportunity if we come together, all of us. Right? That is data centers, it's technology providers, it's grid operators, it's academia, and you name it. And we have good experiences on a setup approach like this from our partnering program, the Open Compute project, where we can see that we are really able to accelerate innovation when we come together and when we open up a bit. When I look at the investment, when I look at the activities on research and development in the energy technologies, then I get really encouraged. Right? It is amazing what is going on, but there is a risk. There is a risk that we develop in different directions. That means that the individual bricks that we are developing, the individual components we are developing, they might be fantastic individually, but when we try to integrate them, the system will be inefficient. There is a risk that we are hesitating on making the investment because we want to wait just a little bit longer to see what will be the prevailing direction. So therefore, I'm quite excited of help pushing this Net Zero Innovation Hub into reality together with other of the sustainability powerhouses here. And we're eager to contribute, and we are bringing, for example, a transformation of the power grid that turns the data centers into active decarbonization players that provides an opportunity of flexibility to integrate innovative energy resource technologies while we accelerate the data center construction. So this Net Zero Innovation Hub, it aligns perfectly with our commitment to be an impact company. And we really hope that many other players will come along and join us in the hub on this quest here. Thank you.
Must be me now, right?
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah.
It's New Year.
Thank you, JP. I'm not Danish, I'm German, but I'm working in Denmark. I'm working at Danfoss, where I'm leading the Danfoss Climate Solutions segment, which is about a third of Danfoss. Not too far away from here, down in Sønderborg, or in Nordborg, we have actually a zero carbon data center. Is it alone standing? No, it's not. It's integrated in our campus, which is today already since 22 zero carbon. How do we do that? We do that the same way we do it always. We reduce the energy consumption by energy efficiency measures. That could be drives for fans, that could be drives for pumps, that could be other elements. Hydronic management, optimizing intelligent management of hydronics. In a second step, we reuse the heat we are creating in a data center by, there was one example, by feeding it back into a district energy grid, which is admitted sometimes difficult because nobody wants to pay for the interface. On the other side, you still have high temperature networks which are 90 degrees and they are complaining you're disturbing their control. But that's possible to solve it, and we have solved it in our own campus. And what we then need for the remaining is renewable energy. Now, JP would say, yeah, if we take renewable energy and we solve this issue with the 6%, then we have solved it. I don't think so, because there is not unlimited renewable energy. So there is also a must in a data center to reduce the energy consumption and to reuse the heat we are generating and not just blow it out of the air. So having evaporators on the roof, maybe even with water, this is absolutely bullshit. Because first of all, you are blowing it out, you destroy energy. Second, you use valuable water. There is no water in the future. Water is even more scarce than a bigger problem than the CO2 emissions. So we have to come to a point where data centers are reusing all the energy they are consuming for computing power on the one hand, absolutely, but also then take the rest somewhere else. And how can that work? Like here, you have it close to a city, you use the heat for maybe in summer for hot water generation instead of 10,000 boilers in buildings. In many countries you have boilers doing that also in summer. Or you use it in a factory process. I mean, in every of our factories we have a washing machine for metal parts. They're all running with 70 degrees. So you could always take the heat from a data center, even in summer, right? Because they're not taking the air from outside to heat that washing machine for metal parts. They typically take gas or, in best case, direct electricity, which is very inefficient. So I believe if we are careful where we put the data centers, if we connect the different dots, data centers, applications with each other, then we can actually really get to a net zero data center. And if we don't do that together, I 100% agree with you, then we are optimizing single elements, but the total system is not optimal. And that's why I'm very, very positive and happy that we can launch that experiment today. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all four of you. We'll now move into a little bit of Q&A, and not to press you to be disagreeing, but we like the discussion also, because obviously you don't look at everything in the same way, even though you can have the experience that it sounds like it. But I would like to start out with a rather broad question, because maybe look into what are the greatest challenges or biggest challenges for the data center industry. Is it the renewable energy? Is it the connection to the surrounding society? Or is it maybe also the amount of data? I mean, do we need also to use less data? Because as it looks now, we will have a data explosion over the next decade probably. Is that also something that we should work on? Where do you see the main challenges, each one of you? Do you want to go first here, Jürgen?
Yeah, I can do that. I leave the data part to JP. Of course, not growing is not a good idea in the world, right? Going back to Stone Age is not a good idea. And we also need computing power for a lot of the innovations. We also need it to optimize data centers and the energy flow. I think the biggest problem is to combine the growth, which is, I would say, exponential, if not more, through artificial intelligence, higher temperature chips in the future, to link that to the use of energy. So where we place data centers, how we connect them, and how we transform all the energy into used energy, that is for me very, very important. We have to reduce the amount of renewable energy we are using to cool data centers. And obviously I'm more a water cooling guy, right, than an air cooling guy. Because we are producing compressors, we are in the refrigeration cycle, and JP mentioned this morning the physical fact that transfer to water is, I think, is 1,000 times then to air, right? So if you go back to that, and if you get the water very close to where the heat is produced, then you don't have to cool a whole room via air and then cool the air and blow it out. So the closer you get, and that means you need to manage the water flow. You need ideally to combine the water flow with the temperature needed and allowed in the chip, which means you need to connect the chip logic and the data center control systems to the water flow, meaning pumps, valves, small pipes. And if you do that, you can get a huge efficiency gain, in my opinion. And at the end, you need to get rid of the hot water outside and deliver it to that building or to the school over there. That's, in my opinion, the biggest problem. The systemic integration of data centers from the beginning of the chip to the heat going out.
Yeah. All right. Mikael, pretty much the same question.
Yeah, and some of the same answers, honestly, because there's no doubt that I think, as we even heard from the minister, there's a great expectation to us as a sector. So it's not like demand will go away. I think we can discuss with our kids if they should see Netflix or not, or if they should use their computer and so on. I think that's not the way, especially not to go in our Western society. I think that's what we are built around, that is actually being smarter, using computers. And so I think that's a given. So actually that's also part of the challenge, because expectations are on us to actually fix that. And that's why we have the hub. I think there's a lot of, as mentioned here, there's a lot around the technologies, but in my mind, just as much around how do we couple the different sectors. So as I said before, I've personally been involved in some of the district heating setups, and one thing is to produce the heat, another thing is to get all the regulations and everything to work together. That is complicated, and it is something that maybe Google or Microsoft have the power to do, but we need that to make that available for everybody. So that's one thing. I think we also need to make solutions that are kind of scalable across minor data centers and up to hyperscalers like Google and Microsoft that build very large data centers that nobody wants to have as a neighbor. So how do we solve that problem? And what do we do when there's no district heating? As you talked about, we need to look into fish farms or greenhouses, other things to make the technology available also to countries that do not have district heating. So we are blessed with a cool climate, but most of the world is unfortunately getting warmer and warmer, even we are. So how do we solve that? That is also part of the big, at least for the ones of us that are across multiple countries.
Yeah, and thank you for this. I think, to be honest, that the biggest challenge that I personally see is how do we, solve the problems, understanding what AI can do for us. Mm-hmm. Because I think cross-functionally or cross sectors, we can actually do so much more if we use the power of AI, right? So use all the data that's available, run all the parameters, and make it more efficient. I think that's one of the challenges I see, simply the usage of AI and how we actually are harnessing all the benefit that we can see. We made a report at 25% of the improvement in emission could actually be reached by using intelligence around how we actually are coupling all the systems together. And I think that's something that we're deeply impressed about. And it's not only data centers, that's all industries. And I think that's something that we should think carefully about how we use that. The other part is that we want to make sure that there's access to enough green energy, actually. So even though that there's a lot of green energy out there, we still think that there's more needed. So get access to green energy and balance the grid in a more smart way than we've done before, so we can actually obtain that 24/7, because that's the difficult part. So those two things are the things I would like to mention here, because that's all our problems, right? So thanks for that.
I would like to join with what JP is saying here. When we communicate on the biggest challenge, then we say it's building enough data centers fast enough. Right? So how do we do that? And then if we break that down, there's a couple of paths of friction there. And one of them we can optimize on AI. How can we make the most of what is already there? But also the supply chain. How do we provide components? How do we provide material fast enough for the data centers? And then finally, there is the approval process, right? In order to construct a data center, you need approvals, you need grid connection, you need all kinds of things, right? And this is taking a lot of time today. And how do we, as a technology provider, activate the data centers more as this decarbonization player I mentioned before? How do we make sure that the data centers, they are attractive for the countries where they are applying for this, and we reduce the dependency on the grid power? So that's some of the things for us.
I'll just have the phone so they can hear my questions. When we talk about this connecting to the surrounding sectors, are we mostly talking organizational challenges or cultural challenges, or are we mostly talking technical barriers, the need for new technologies or solutions? Or do we have many of the components, we just need them to put them together?
Yes.
You don't have to answer all of you. You say just yes. So we have everything we need, basically.
No, but yeah. We do have a ton of very attractive base technologies and components available. So where we're missing something, that's on the integration level, right? and then you also mentioned it, when we put things together, they are not perfectly aligned, right? And when we want to connect with the surrounding society, there are some difficulties in passing on the valuable energy, for example, the heat, or collecting in hydrogen or whatever it is. So there is a difficulty in connecting to the broader system, and this is where we see the challenge, not on technology level, not on component level.
I think the other one you mentioned, I think most of the technologies are there. It is a business model topic, and it is a regulatory topic. I mean, you know, the what is it, capped energy price in Denmark topic, which is not the case in other countries. But this is an issue, and I think there is still some innovation we can do. A little bit what I mentioned before, right? If you connect the know-how of the data center company or the computer company or the AI company with the physical logic of running a water-based cooling system and the recovery system, there's a lot you can optimize. You will always need some hardware tools, right? Some pumps and valves. You cannot get rid of that. You cannot replace them by a chip as long as you use water. Water is a good medium for that, but I think the bigger problem is really in getting the parties together. And at Danfoss, very often we are being asked very often, couldn't you be the interface? So, okay, so we should put 10,000 heat pumps in between data centers and close by cities, and we should also buy the heat pumps, produce them, and put them in place. True, right? I mean, we have this request very often. And then we have, on the other hand, a lot of green funds who would like to invest. But bringing that together and to say who wants to own 500 heat pumps which are connecting heat emitters and heat users, that is really difficult, right? It's a good one for a startup, but you need also regulatory involvement, because if they do such a small change, the complete business model is falling apart. And I think this is also what I would expect we can work on, because we have producers, component technology companies and data center companies, or even the users. Google is not a data center company, right? You are just having one because you need it for your business model together. And that is the strength of this, in my opinion.
And as you said the business model. So one of the things they are also realizing that, for instance, having heat from a data center in your district heating network is not necessarily cheaper. It is often more expensive. So also you need to accept that it has to a cost to be more green. And that is not kind of how at least the Danish model works right now. They need to look at what is cheapest, right? Yeah. So it gives some challenges. I think there's still some areas of the technology. For us, it's something about backup generators as an example. Right now, there's not a technology. If the grid is not stable, we cannot use it. We still need to look at alternatives. Unfortunately, that is diesel generators, because that's what's available right now. We use biodiesel, which is green and so on, but it's not a preferred method, as an example. So I think there's a number of areas for innovation. There's also the whole kind of waste part of it that we haven't talked a lot about, kind of, but what do we do with all the components? We try to work with kind of reusing the computer components, but we also know that's a scarce resource, and we use more and more. So how can we be smart around that? So there's, in my mind, many areas, both technology and process-wise.
Yeah, and most is said, but I would like to say one thing. Instead of regulation, I think we should talk about incentives. It seems like all of us are really like empowered by incentives. So when things, get into some discussions about what we want to move, then incentivize something. And I think that's the model that I would recommend everybody to think about. And I hope that we can set up together some incentives about what is the right thing to do. How do we truly go out and incentivize the right behaviors? And then it will happen. And again, we've seen that just a small thing with our Google Maps. The incentive for just showing you what is the most economic route to go a certain place and have the less CO2 emission, have moved tons and tons of CO2 emission, right? This is very small things that you can do as a company. But again, incentivize to and monitor and make it available for everyone is definitely something that could move the needle. So that's the only thing I'd like to say on top of it, that I don't necessarily believe in all the regulations. I think the regulations should be incentives. Then I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, and just to add on that, so we already have some improvements out there, right? We have frequency support on the power. It's a new service, right? This is a new product that doesn't exist today. So services here, and especially because I also agree it would be nice to incentivize it, right?
Yeah, just as a data point, just think about Norway, how many electrical cars they have compared to Denmark. What did they do in difference? They just incentivized the electrical car rate. I think Denmark lost an opportunity for that part, but that's okay. But it's coming now, so I think it's just one of the things that could be greatly appreciated if the right incentives is out, then that there is a movement happening. So if you want to go from gasoline cars to electrical cars, you know what to do, right? It's not that complicated.
Just trying to move from the more societal level into this hub and your wishes and ambitions with the hub seen from your own company perspective. Can you be a little more detailed on what do you hope to get out of this that you can't already do in all the other cooperation that you engage in? What's the difference from your point of view with this hub compared to your own development setup already existing?
I think there will be fixed people here, right, who are permanently cooperating, maybe sometimes virtual, but mostly in person. And we have a good cooperation with many parties in the world, not only in Europe, but also in China and in India and in Japan and in the US. But what the difference really is for us, we wanna apply all the technology we can offer today, maybe simulate that, right? We don't have to build a data center. We are today very far in simulating water flow and compression and two-phase flow in the refrigeration cycle. We can actually simulate from the very beginning to the end. We can combine compression, including hydronic flow. We can simulate the distribution in a rack, a heat exchanger. So I think we can do a lot here, which we cannot do if we are not working together. I meet JP once in a while, I don't know, every half year at some conference, but this is not the type of cooperation which would bring us any further. And therefore I think we expect really tangible things. We expect output in a year from now, not super nice concepts on PowerPoint, which in 2035 have an impact. But next year we want to show some first results of this cooperation. That's at least my ambition.
Yeah, a lot of good points. I think from a Microsoft point of view, we build data centers because we want to provide a service for our customers. So I wouldn't say it's a necessary evil, but it's something we do, and we have the same challenges as other providers of data center services. So we can go together and solve them together to deliver, say, what is our main purpose of our business, to deliver IT services to our customers. And I think moving closer together and also maybe opening a little bit up for what are kind of the challenges we work for in each of our companies and what are the latest developments in different areas could also maybe move some mindsets and spend some new ideas in our own development departments, so we don't get too much centered about ourselves. So that's what I hope for here, and having it very technology focused and less so on policies and other things, let others deal with that.
Yeah, so our ambition is net zero in 2030. So that's really simple. The thing is that we'll like to see the first real project complete, not in probably a year, but 18 months. We have to hire the CEO of this place first. So I'll probably give that a couple of months, and then we should get this going as soon as possible to get the first, like energy efficiency initiatives that we can do between exactly like harnessing technology with digital transformation, right? So those things could be extremely important for us, and then continue to make sure that we are making this a pan-European setup and hub, because it's important for us that this reaches a little bit further than Fredericia and Denmark and Europe as such. It is a world problem, right? The air is kind of like the same around the world, and the temperature is rising for a reason. So we there's really urgency. So I agree with about the concrete result as soon as possible.
Yeah. And one of my ambitions is related to the initial statement I made on the hesitation there is on investment. We have bilateral talks with all of these guys and the other internet giants and the colos and the smaller ones, and the ambitions are pretty much the same. So the talks is pretty much the same, but there are differences. So we would need to develop different components for each of them. We are sometimes hesitating at a pause because there are some questions that are difficult to answer. But if we put all the brilliant minds together, hopefully we will be able to answer the questions faster. We would be able to align on some of the defining parameters on how should the powertrain look like, how should the sector coupling look like. So everyone around us, not only in the hub, but also other technology providers, solution providers, can align against that. So we will have this system that really integrates well, right from design.
Yes. Not a big secret that some politicians, some media has a tough time around data centers. As the minister said, we use a lot of power, and that we can't run from that. That's true. But can we, with this hub, also maybe change the narrative by reaching out to the surrounding society and say, we want to find solutions together with you, because we are all dependent on the data, whether we are a company or we are private people. Is that also part of the ambition from your view?
I would say clearly yes, maybe more for you two guys than for us, but I mentioned one example. Compared to 2, 3, 4 years ago, we are doing significantly more in simulation. And what is simulation? It's high computing power. You need exactly these high power computing chips or high performance computing chips to do that. And the amount of increase in computing power, and Sune is nodding here because I asked him the last couple of years for more cores. And it's so expensive, I cannot do that. In the meantime, we have built it in our campus, but we do significantly more. And we save so much time and money in developing new things. I mean, if you take a shaft and an impeller of a turbo compressor, we have been in the past making one, additive manufacturing later on, trial and error, 3 months later, a new one. It took years. And it was very expensive, a lot of consumption of energy and metal and so on. Today, we're doing 10,000 iterations in 2 days, and then we test maybe additive 2 or 3 models. And this is just one example. So I think there is no way that we are stopping to use digital data and bits and bytes. This is at the end helping us if we do it the right way.
And maybe to that point, also showing that we are actually part of the solution. This has been mentioned by you just now. You talked about optimization of the grids and so on. Actually, we can help actually also on that part. And maybe then there are some basic misconceptions about energy consumption and how much it has actually been growing for the data center industry, which is not totally correct. And maybe there's an opportunity to tell that. I still think we come from a stronger position if we actually lean in, we show innovation, and then as part of that also, of course, try to make the story as clean as possible instead of just debating why it's not correct, because we will not win that discussion, because it's not the minister's business. No, he needs to look at the climate and look at the ones that use energy and push on that, and then it's up to us to get smarter.
Yeah, and again, I totally agree that we definitely want to think about the reputation of data centers. It's important for us, it's important for our mission to make data accessible and useful for everyone, and also like in the best possible way and respectfully. So I think we definitely want to make sure that we are, I'll put it over here, so that we are paying attention to this. And I hope that because we are actually a very like a positive impact when it comes to, yes, we consume power, we are really efficient, and on top of this, we are, again, already 100% CO2 neutral when it comes to our grid, right? So just here in Denmark, we have like over 160 megawatts of solar capacity. We are not using that at all. So we are already positive in just this country, right? And I don't think we're telling that story enough, because how many industries are truly investing that amount of money in renewables when it comes to acknowledging, yes, we need power, but at the same time, we're also investing. We're putting like money where our actions are, and that's where basically we're seeing that that the reputation is important, but also the story is probably not told enough about that part, right? Because we have been investing significant amount of money in renewables. We're not even just thinking about that we can invest in Europe and then it'll be good for the US or whatever. We're actually investing in the country which we win, so that the electrons that is flowing from the wind turbines or the solar or the geothermal or hydropower is actually running into that same country's data center. And I think that's a reasonably okay thing to do, but I don't think we told that story enough. And of course we hope with this innovation center that we can spread that out, and with you, Henrik, that you can help us with that with your colleagues in Europe.
Just real quick, as long as the perception is as it is that the data center is just a load on the grid, then it's a missed opportunity also for the decision makers to know what a super asset the data centers is to stabilize the grid when we are taking the fossil fuel plants off the grid. Then the resource is right here, and the technology is just around the corner. So if we have that perception going on, then it's a missed opportunity to keep our grids stable.
Just one final question, JP. You said pretty short that the ambition is net zero by 2030. So my final question to all of you is, how optimistic are you that we will actually reach that target? Is that just a given that we'll reach it?
I don't think so, because the question is net zero in what, JP, right? No flights anymore. Yeah, for you from the US, and we won't see you anymore.
Oh, you're tough.
So then you need to use a hydrogen plane or come by a hydrogen boat. That will also work.
Just use Google Meet.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. No, I think in the core operations, I truly believe one can do that. Right. I think also getting closer to where the renewable energy is. So in order not to load the grid, do the demand side optimization and use all the technology which is there today. There is no reason. There's nothing at all missing today. So we just have to use it in the combination.
I think the simple answer, I don't think I would not be standing here if I did not believe that there was an opportunity to make this happen. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. It's not going to be easy, and that's also why we form this collaboration with even somebody who might say that we're competitors, but we still think that this is important for the industry. So absolutely.
I think I said my words already that we believe in 2030 targets. They are ambitious. They are really hard to reach. There's a lot of things we need to optimize to get there. And Jürgen, I'll take the hydroplane here because there will be enough hydrogen at that time.
And looking across the industry, there will be individual data centers that is probably not completely neutral. But I'm taking the bet here and saying that the overall data center industry will have a positive impact, and it will also contribute that we reduce the CO2 in other sectors, right? In other industries, in the rest of the grid. So I'm positive that the data center will be a net positive contribution by 2030 overall.
So we talk about scope 4.
Yeah, and I think to be honest, that we have to be net negative really,
Yes.
because we have a deficit, right? And even though we get to 2030 in the data center industry, I think there will be a lot of industry that still need to pick up, right? So we probably have to do some carbon capture to get some carbon out of the air, right? And that's also why we see even now that the next generation already is happening, where companies is investing in carbon capture and capture carbon and store it somewhere, right? So I think it's going further than this, right? But for now, let's solve the 2030 targets first, and then we can start to talk about the net negative after that.
Thank you very much to all four of them. It's important also to emphasize, as I did in the beginning, that it's not a closed club. So it's not just for the four gentlemen here, but it's really actually opening up for cooperation to many other companies, other industries. And as soon as we get on the ground from next week, basically, when we have the board and so on, we can make some decisions on what's going to happen as the next steps. We can reach out for new partners on specific projects, because then it'll be more concrete. But let's give a hand to the four gentlemen. Thank you. And then I think due to the temperature in here, we'll just have a 10-minute break. We have toilets right out here and also up on the first floor. So we'll be back here at 4:05. Yes, please find your seats. We'll get started. I would like to welcome a completely new panel from important partners, both in the process that we've had so far, where you have all benefit or contributed with ideas, also to concrete projects, and we are very happy about that. So it's great that you're here. So let me introduce, we have Henrik Madsen, yes, from the Technical University of Denmark, professor and head of section. We have André Bryde Alnor, who is senior manager for digital at the Danish TSO Energinet. We have Glenda Napier from Energy Cluster, where you're the CEO. And then we have Oksana Krasatsenka, who is Director of Knowledge Transfer at Euroheat and Power. So welcome to all four of you. And with the previous panel, you will have a few minutes introduction around yourself, your organization, and also some point of views with regard to data centers. Why are they important from the place that you come from? So we will start out actually with the men. So Henrik, you will go first.
Okay, thanks a lot, Henrik. Okay. Yeah, I'm coming from DTU Compute actually. So data center is of course a core topic for us in general. We are also running some of the leading, probably the largest project now on data centers, called the project called Cool Data, financed, for instance, by, for instance, mostly by Innovation Fund Denmark. I'm also leading. I'm a professor at DTU, as said. I'm leading also the DTU section or the activities for smart energy system. We have a committee for that. I'm actually also a professor at NTNU in Trondheim on smart energy systems. And then I have been responsible for our Center for High Performance Computing in DTU for many years. I'm not responsible for that anymore. I think I got too old or something like that. But I have some experience in large scale computing, parallel computing and things like that also. I think that we know that there is a huge potential in use of data center for the green transition. We need data centers. I think maybe one thing I can mention here in Italy is we have a project going on with the US on starting the energy transition, the goals in 2040, 2050. The planned or the foreseen energy consumption or power consumption is almost the same for Europe and the US. But based on the analysis, and on the US side, we have Department of Energy, we have, for instance, NREL, one of the energy labs, focusing on wind and solar. We have MIT Energy Lab, we have Tufts University, and more. What we can see in comparison with what we are doing in Europe and what our friends do in the US, and we have several projects over there also, is that it looks like we can save around 50% of the need for infrastructure and wind and solar power installation. Because in Europe we are used to sector coupling and we are used to demand side flexibility, at least at some level. We have, for instance, district heating. Basically they don't have district heating. We also have district cooling, which might be more and more need for that. So that's really important numbers. 50% savings. I'm also in a project with DNV where we can see that where mainly they have analyzed the cost for the infrastructure investment in Europe, and they claim that if we are able to unlock demand side flexibility, we can save up to between 50 and 80% of the cost for grid reinforcement until 2030. That's the numbers in their report. So, and we need computers for that. So it's very important in DTU.
Thank you, and let's move on to André.
Hi everyone, I'm André Alnor from Energinet. Work in, we call it digital, but it's really innovation both in society, internally, across the world as well. I think our interest in this is multifaceted. I think Mick mentioned it earlier. Is data centers basically just a load? No, we shouldn't consider it as such. But when we do energy projections on how to operate and how to expand the net, that's just how we see it. So our perspective is changing. Believe it or not, we are also ourselves data center owners and operators and represent a lot of companies, mainly within Europe, who does this. So we also have an interest in this as data center owners ourselves. But really making society work, that is actually our at the core of what we work on in Energinet, not just electricity or gas specifically, but how to integrate sectors, how to make this work. And this exact collaboration that allows us to raise some questions that we are not otherwise allowed to raise. So once, for instance, Google or Microsoft comes to us and asks us, can we build a data center here or there? Then we have that specific one data center we can look upon and say, how do we integrate that? A place such as this, we can ask a bunch of people with common interests, how do we deploy data centers at scale and integrate them in the system? And that is for us really the interesting question. How do we use this to collaborate, to balance the energy grid? Whether we like it or not, we don't like it when there's not energy enough. We don't like it when there's data, and we also ourselves consume a heck of a lot of data just to operate the grid or just to make sure that energy invoicing works in any given country. So we have a vested interest in this project.
Thank you. And Glenda?
Thank you very much, and I would like to really congratulate you all with this new initiative. It's great that you launched this today. I'm from the Energy Cluster Denmark, which is the cluster organization or the innovation platform for the energy sector. And we have 520 members among energy companies and universities and knowledge institutions across Denmark, but also a few abroad. And we help facilitate concrete innovation projects. And this is where we really see obvious collaboration with this new initiative. Today we have a project portfolio of around 3 billion Danish kroner, which we have fundraised together with partners. And it is within energy production, a lot of renewable energy, it's energy storage, batteries, but also Power-to-X and hydrogen projects. There is a lot in the infrastructure area, energy infrastructure, sector coupling, which has been mentioned, and digitalization, and also energy efficiency. And I think these topics are all relevant in different aspects. They are all relevant for data centers. So bringing in the energy sector and all the SMEs and large companies and in collaboration with data centers, this is what we will contribute with, and we look very much forward to.
Thank you. Roxana?
Thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to congratulate you on the choice of colors for this initiative. I find it very beautiful. Secondly, thank you so much for inviting Euroheat and Power to be a member of the advisory board for this initiative. I come from Euroheat and Power, which is the European Association representing sustainable district heating and cooling networks. We have more than 150 members around Europe. Those are mainly national district heating and cooling associations, district heating operators, component manufacturers, research institutes, consultancies, IT solution providers, so our membership is very wide. What's our interest in data center waste heat recovery? Well, first and foremost, because we consider waste heat as a very valuable resource that cannot be wasted anymore. We cannot allow ourselves and our sector specifically to waste heat from many processes, industrial processes, but also tertiary services, such as data centers. It's one of the examples. But we take it very seriously, and we've been advocating for the recognition of the role of waste heat on par with the recognition of renewable energy sources for heating and cooling purposes. So this is one point. Another point is also because of our involvement in EU-funded projects. Me personally, I've been involved in the project Reuse Heat, where we explore the potential of waste heat sources from unconventional resources, such as data center, for example. And we also implemented one demo site on data center heat recovery in Denmark, from which we really learned a lot. Because, lessons good and bad, but something to be kept in mind and something to be shared with the wider community. And being part of this innovation hub is a great opportunity to share knowledge, our experiences, to learn from each other, and to roll out it not only in Denmark, but across Europe.
Thank you. Let's give a hand to the 4 panelists. And then let me pick up where I ended the other debate, because I asked them if they were optimistic around reaching these very ambitious climate targets, both in Denmark and in Europe. On a scale from 1 to 10, if 10 is almost certain and 1 is very uncertain, where are you on that scale, Andre?
That's a very good question. Somewhere between 7 and 10, I think it depends very much on, say, how do we get there? What is really the goal? We can easily make up calculations that will allow us to get us there. But if we really want to deploy it, full value chain, full setup, everything, that's another question. So I think it depends on what do we really mean when we ask that question. But we have to be optimistic. If we're not trying right now, then we haven't really started to solve the problem.
How about you, Glenda?
I think I'll give it an 8. I look at what would the members in the energy cluster answer to this question. I think a lot of the companies, they would say we have the technologies that can actually get us there, and I think that's true. I also think that with the CO2, with the CCS agreement that has just been announced again, and this reduction, CO2 reduction through the storage of CO2 offshore or onshore, I think that will take us also a long way. Then there is a discussion, should we store the CO2 or should we use the CO2? And that's sort of a religious, not a religious, but it can sometimes seem a little bit religious discussion. But on a short term, towards 2030, the government has just decided that it is the storage technologies that to a large extent will get us there. And I think that's probably that's going to happen. But I think also the sector coupling and the collaboration between industries and sectors is a crucial step towards the realization of the 2030 goals. I don't think the energy sector itself can do it, and the agricultural sector cannot do it alone, the food sector, and so forth. So we really need to collaborate across sectors. And I think what we're doing today here and what we'll do forward is a very important step in that way. So working across sectors, I think is an important way.
Yeah, I fully agree. I would probably give it at 8, 9, maybe. But I fully agree with what has been said. I would also mention the water sector, just as one example. We are working a lot on wastewater treatment together with, for instance, Veolia. And they can save around 50% CO2 tomorrow by the digital technology we have today. But it doesn't happen because of the regulatory framework in many countries. I also think that it's very wise that these huge companies has funded this initiative here in Denmark. I think we are going low on. We have a rather low temperature in district heating compared to some other countries. I think we could educate, for instance, the Germans. On how to do that, and also Austria, for instance. So, and I think we should do that. I think there are some low-hanging fruits. But I think also when we come to power systems, we are working with some number 1 or number 2 in Europe, the largest company. They have contacted us in order to help us activating flexibility in their production, basically. And what we can see is that there are some regulatory challenges. So we need to convince the governments in different countries how to, for instance, implement dynamic tariffs, not only time of use tariffs, what we typically have in Denmark today. We should have a more intelligent energy tax than we have today, because even though data center goes in on a high voltage level, we need flexibility everywhere. So we need digitalization, we need some changes in the regulatory framework. We have been asked by, for instance, Energitilsyn, I don't know the English word, actually, the one keeping an eye on the DSOs and so on in Denmark, how this should be changed, but we need to bring it forward. So I'm quite optimistic. I agree with what I'm saying. We more or less have the technology. We need to educate some around. But I think the investment here in Fredericia and central Denmark that's a clever decision.
Well, since I'm speaking on behalf of the district heating and cooling sector, we also have our targets. On the regulatory perspective, probably it's worth mentioning that there is a greater awareness of the role of waste heat in general. And the Fit for 55 package, it's a package of directives adopted at the European level, is a great testimony. In particular, there is a renewable energy directive, which is about to be revised and come into force, which finally includes waste heat into sectoral targets for heating, for buildings, and for district heating and cooling in particular. And it also invites member states to establish coordination framework for waste heat actors. So congratulations, Denmark is beyond and as usual, but this is something that needs to be done in all member states to facilitate the discussion between different waste heat actors in various sectors. There is another directive, Energy Efficiency Directive, which was already officially adopted and which will come into force on the 10th of October. And this one establishes a definition of efficient district heating and cooling, which sets on par, on an equal foot, renewable energy sources and waste heat. And by 2050, we will have to completely cancel fossil fuels in our systems, by the way. So waste heat and renewable energy sources is our main option to go. The same directive also has a very specific provision for data centers. I guess you're aware of it, but data centers with the energy input more than 1 megawatt will have to mandatorily utilize waste heat or use other waste heat applications such as district heating and cooling systems. And for this, yes, there will be economic feasibility analysis required, but it's an obligation. So sooner or later, you will have to do it. And these directives have to be transposed into national legislations within 2 years from now. So the regulatory framework is there. And in our opinion, it's a favorable regulatory framework for the transition for district heating and cooling and for the cooperation with other sectors such as data centers. So I'm positive.
Yeah. But just on that note, one of the challenges sometimes in Denmark to reuse the heat is the different way of running district heating companies around the country. So we have a different framework from one municipality to the other. So when you say that now there's a regulatory framework that forces data centers to reuse the heat, is the district heating side of things ready to receive it, ready to develop blueprint models that can work all over Europe? Can you say just a few words about that?
Well, it's not an obligation to connect to district heating, don't get me wrong. It's an obligation to assess what are the opportunities for using waste heat from the data center side. And district heating network might be one of the options, but it needs to be assessed whether it's economically feasible, whether it's technically feasible. And of course, there are many limitations. First of all, is the distance between the data center and the district heating network in place. It's the temperature, which was already addressed, because waste heat from data center is a low temperature heat. And in the majority of European countries, the temperatures are way above 70 degrees in our pipelines. So there are limitations on the technical side, of course. On the organizational side, yeah, believe me or not, but the organization of district heating companies is different everywhere in Europe. So it's a case-by-case, I think, assessment and situation, very individual. But we should not miss this opportunity, and the utilization of waste heat in district heating networks should be assessed as a first option.
So, Henrik, oftentimes we use the phrase from consumers to prosumers, and data centers consume a lot of energy, and you were also talking, Andre, talking about the grid balancing aspect of things, and how do you see the opportunity, and how far down the road do we have to go before this is really integrated and we become, to a larger extent, prosumers as data centers?
Yeah, but I think we are getting there due to new rules and a lot of technology development also when it comes to computers, data center ideas for cooling. We are collaborating with a few, maybe not the hyperscale data center. We are also working with the mid-size data centers on these ideas with PCM, use of storage technology, and getting rid of the diesel generators and things like that. So I think that I agree with what has been said by the former panel also, that with the use of AI, massive amount of data, data centers can be extremely flexible, and they can really help the grid at all levels, basically. And of course, we have the large data centers are connected to high voltage, but more or less the same technologies can be used by small data centers on the medium voltage level and so on. So we actually got recently we got 500 million Danish kroner for running two large European projects on data spaces for power system and energy system, using flexibility in sector coupling, and in that context we need to use a lot of data and so on, and of course a lot of data centers. So I think for sure data center can be extremely flexible. They can move around load. They can be in many cases, and I think when it comes to district heating, the challenge I see normally in Denmark, at least where I have the development, is that the horizon for the municipality is around 30 years when they ask, when, for instance, in Copenhagen, where Microsoft is aiming to install some data, and we are involved in some projects related to VEX and so on in the Copenhagen system. And since horizon for data centers maybe is 5 years, it's difficult to promise for JP and Microsoft and so on to promise they will be there in 30 years from now. And that's a challenge. But I think we, again, should broaden it up, and then I think they will be a very, very intelligent and smart part. Because we also have huge companies, as I said before, which want to be flexible. They need help from data centers and large-scale computers. So, yeah.
And for you, Glenn, seen from the energy side, I mean, data centers are both good customers from renewable energy, but they're also big investors in new projects, providing additional renewable energies into the European system. How do you see the integration and the cooperation between the energy sector and data centers? Are you already seeing good examples of that, and how should we encourage that even further?
Yeah, there are good, I think, examples. You are involved in a number of them, right? When we made the energy cluster, we made the sort of the scope for the organization, and data center is specifically sort of described as a collaborative partner in one partner, but many partners, we need to collaborate with as an energy cluster. So there is no doubt that this is a target. There is a match here. There's a match between data centers and the energy sector companies, both as prosumers, consumers. I don't think it is going to, I mean, there's good examples, and there are also some examples mentioned already by the previous panel. I think the collaboration between SMEs, startups, large companies in itself is not always easy. It is sometimes difficult because you need to do something different than what you're used to. You need to open your books and collaborate with others. And also in this case, I think we need to facilitate and push, and this is, I think, our role as organizations, help it to happen. Obviously, there's already really good things going on, but I think that if we want to really sort of increase the collaboration between the sectors, I think we should help that, and that must be our ambitions to do that together. So because I think it is complex to collaborate. We see it even between companies that are within the same sector. So yeah.
Thank you. And a question for you, Andre, with your responsibility for the infrastructure side of things, making Denmark run, or what was the term you mentioned, and also with your colleagues around Europe. What's your thoughts on the data centers, and has that changed over the past couple of years, for example, where maybe it has become more visible that the data centers are here in Denmark? What are the discussions at the TSO level in Denmark and in Europe around the role of data centers?
I think the discussions they're very different. Years back, the discussion was pretty much not there. It's something that we didn't realize was as big as it was going to be. When we realized it was as big as it is now and is increasing, it quickly became a discussion. How do we manage this amount of load? And figuring out just the operationalization of integrating so much load at points in our grid that wasn't necessarily designed to fit that in. I think the discussions that we have today has many more facets. It's much more around how do we actually engage data center owners as both prosumers and consumers. How do we partner on all of this? I think we have a lot of discussions, not just here, but global discussions on the 24/7 approach. How do we do this? How do we deploy this at scale around the globe? And what will this mean for balancing? I mean, early on we looked upon this as new data center comes in. We would like you to deliver flexibility. Wouldn't you be interested in selling some or that we buy some flexibility from you guys? The discussion's not that much binary anymore. It's more, we see a lot of partners wanting to be green, wanting to have a full value chain that actually is net zero. There's a lot of more things to play with here. So we don't necessarily have to sell stuff in the energy markets in order to be balanced, that can be doing as data centers are doing today, balancing towards their own energy investments or energy asset investments. There's a lot of solutions at play. So I think we are finding ourselves at a difficult place because we basically have to be engaged in all of these very diverse discussions with very different roles and different perspectives from all the different players. So having a room such as this where we can ask the questions together, I think that's quite important. But I think the importance for us is that we are opening up, we are understanding that it's not just a data center, it's not just one thing, it's not just a load, and that it's actually an important player in balancing the grid. And I think you guys are as well.
Thank you very much. The final round of question I think will be focusing on the integral part, because we talk a lot about the need for closer cooperation, but we also acknowledge that there are some challenges in actually getting into bed together and get things done, because we can do white papers and research projects and have conferences like this, but how do we make sure that things are actually happening? And within, like JP said, within 18 months, we have to have the first project up and running, so we can show that this is not just a research panel, it's also solution panel, and we get things done.
I think I have at least my opinion is start with getting decision makers out and engineers in. Ask the right questions. What are we really trying to solve here? And not look too much upon the regulatory side of these things. I mean, all regulations can be changed with time if we find the right solutions. So start with the physics.
Maybe the same question for you, Glenda.
Yeah, I think starting with the pain, starting with the challenge, starting with what we need to solve the problem, focusing on that, looking into how can we make a business out of that, then the solution, and then putting a lot of good people in the same room, make them collaborate, make them understand each other across sectors. And I think the whole fundraising into projects, co-financing with public funds or EU funding into these things, this is what we as organizations can help with. And so there's going to be a lot of administration and communication and fundraising, and that's sort of the boring stuff. We can help with that in collaboration with you. We just need the right people in the room across sectors, and let's focusing on the complex issues that one company cannot solve alone. Let's ask those difficult questions and then look into how do we make a business out of that. And then I think that would be a magnet for really cool projects in a short run.
Yeah, I can. I fully agree with what has been said. I think that for instance, we are now leading this European TEF for smart power system in smart cities, which is an AI-focused project focusing on energy system and power systems. And we are leading that. That project alone is 300 million. And we could team up with some of this money, with some of the money from here. And then we are in contact with a lot of companies, also both these large companies I mentioned, but also smaller companies who actually want to take the next step in the green transition. This morning I participated in a national meeting on data spaces. A large group from my section are in Brussels today. We're talking with DG Connect and DG ENER on data spaces for energy systems. And we can play a big role in that context, and we can do it in a European way. We can do that. We are used to sector coupling. And thanks to, for instance, also funding from Energy Cluster Denmark and so on, we work a lot also with SMEs. And maybe a good thing which came out of the tragic war in Ukraine is that what we have seen is that flexibility is there. Flexibility is actually everywhere. And I think we need to unlock this flexibility. When the prices were really high 1 year ago, more or less, we saw, also in my family, they asked, how do we do it? And we could see there were a lot of flexibility. And now, since last year, we have been together with a lot of small SMEs developing projects. So this is automated. So even though the prices not are record high now, but more moderate or more normal, we still can use the same IoT technologies and AI solutions for activating flexibility. And you should be aware of that even though the huge data centers are connected to a high voltage level, they will also benefit from flexibility on a low voltage level. So flexibility on a DSO level is also a great advantage for a TSO. So yeah. So we're ready at DTU, and yeah.
We're happy about that.
Thank you.
So on the district energy side, I would like to share some learnings that we drew from the European project that we've been involved. So first lesson in our cooperation with data centers was that you guys don't like to share information about your activities, about the expected heat load that can be connected to the district heating network. So in our exercise of mapping the potential and assessing the accessibility of this waste heat, it was not easy at all. So first message is please cooperate with us, and you can always contact Euroheat and Power since we are the organization representing the sector. Second lesson learned, but this is more technical, that data centers are scaling up their activities gradually, which was not always foreseen in our project. So we were expecting a heat load which didn't come at once. So there were some challenges to overcome, of course, with the implementation. Another conclusion was that data centers sometimes relocate, and this is a big risk for district heating operators if the source of energy is relocating, because, for example, it was built in the vicinity of the city, but then the city expanded towards the data center, and for some reason it decided to go further. And as I mentioned, the distance between the network and the data center matters a lot, because it increases the costs and decreases the efficiency of the overall system. On the technical side, there were also a lot of challenges, such as the temperature level. So, for example, in Germany, where the backbone network was a high-temperature district heating network, in order to utilize waste heat from data centers, they built a separate low-temperature network as an island, which was connected to the high-temperature network. But these things can be, of course, fixed even if you don't have a low-temperature network in place. The temperature also needs to be raised, boosted by heat pumps, and this is not a problem anymore, because even in our membership we have excellent heat pump manufacturers, large-scale heat pumps, and even in this room you can find them, which can provide you with this solution, which will be both efficient for the cooling of the data center and the heat provision to the district heating network. Of course, it's a complicated system which requires sophisticated control and monitoring, and sometimes also a thermal energy storage could be a good add-on to the system to make it more flexible, to make it more smart. So all these lessons, all these recommendations can be found in the Reuse Heat Handbook that I'm happy to share. It's a publicly available outcome of the project. Yes, overall, in order to start these projects and kick off, we need to establish dialogue. And we also found out that, of course, data centers' primary objective is the safety of your operations. It's not waste heat recovery, it's not heat provision to the community, but it's a big plus if you can supply local community with heat. It increases your image, as it was mentioned already, but it of course decreases your cooling costs and also decreases the environmental footprint of the district heating system. So just establishing the dialogue is very important, and it's the first step, and I hope that this initiative will help achieve this goal.
Thank you very much. I think that's actually a good way of closing the debate. Let me just take some of the conclusions from what I heard you say. The last one, a bit more openness. I don't know if we can fix that. It's a rather closed sector, but I agree it would be good if we could be a little bit more open if we want to develop together. So that's also one of the issues at the hub, that we actually need to share knowledge, share ideas, and have confidence that we can work together. And that goes within the industry, but also reaching out to your organizations. And also inviting the SMEs, startups that are bringing new ideas to the table, that are not restrained with a lot of tradition and ways of doing things, but can think in a new way and challenge existing thinking. And then the dialogue, getting the right people in the room, and also the engineers that can, I know engineers that can talk for a long time also, but you're right, they might be able to find some good solutions together. So with those three conclusions, I want to thank the panel for joining us. We look forward very much to engage in close dialogue and collaboration with you guys, and also with other organizations like your own around Europe. So I think together we will really be able to make great results. So thanks for joining us for the debate, and let's give them a big hand. And then you are thinking, what happens now? Well, concretely, we will go outside and cut a ribbon as the formal symbol of this Innovation Hub actually being opened. Unfortunately, we won't have a streaming opportunity for that, so we're in a short while we will say goodbye to our streaming guests. After the ribbon cutting, we will have a glass of bubbles and some snacks here, and hopefully you will have time to be here for a few minutes doing some networking and also ask questions, because as we started out and has emphasized throughout the day, this is not a closed club with 4 members. It is a club that is open for collaboration, both inside the industry and outside the industry. So we need to get going, we need to get things done, we need to find solutions in a hurry. We have a tight deadline, so there's no time to waste. We will reach out also to our sister organizations, other trade associations like our own and around Europe, because we need to activate all the resources that we can come up with. So that'll be the end session from my side. Encourage you to contact me or other of the partners, and we can start the dialogue. In a very short while, we have the board up and running. They will decide on the terms for cooperation and also what are the first projects to be engaged in, and then we can start moving. But thank you very much for joining us at this session, also on the streaming, and hopefully we'll see you again for discussing concrete projects, finding solutions together. But thank you very much. Thank you for our guests and the founding partners. Enjoy the cooperation. So thanks, and I hope you'll be here for a little chat afterwards. Bye-bye.